waiting, waiting, waiting. We hate to wait, which is a little bit of a problem because it sure does seem like God uses waiting time to shape people, to guide people in a place of trust. God seems to use waiting time to help us slough off some stuff that doesn't need to be there. God uses waiting time for us to see things a little more clearly. And just think about some of the big waiting things we see in Scripture. Our spiritual ancestors, the Jews, wandered for 40 years in the wilderness before they arrived at the Promised Land. And that's nothing compared to the 400 years their ancestors were slaves in Egypt. 400 years of waiting and crying out to God. You know, Abraham and Sarah had to wait decades for the promise to be fulfilled. Our ancestors waited 1,000 years after the announcement that a Messiah would come before Jesus arrived. 1,000 years of waiting. I just got to tell you, waiting seems to be a part of God's plan. And I'm not going to tie all this point up with a nice little bow and say, well, here's what you do. I'm just going to ask you, does this speak to anybody in the room today? Speak to anybody watching online? Maybe God's kind of ringing your bell inside saying, this is your waiting time. Our tendency when we got to wait, especially when it's around God stuff, is to say, God, you got a day. No, okay, I'll be gracious. I'll give you 2 days to work this out. It almost never works like that. God's like, well, I'll wait while you're not waiting. And we'll work this out together.